Here I have my golden melon that I grew from seeds that I took from the golden melon that we purchased from Costco. And it's starting to make little other babies. I thought it was dying because these older leaves were turning mottled, but there are some new green leaves. I should have probably harvested this melon before the golden melon, because it says that when it turns a lighter color, or when the vine separates from the plant, from this fruit, then that's when you harvest it. My sunflowers are giving a second bloom down here, which was a surprise. I thought it was done for the season. And it's putting up new blooms. I had told myself earlier that I would try to plant new seeds, sow new seeds every 2 weeks, and I didn't keep that promise, but I did try earlier on, so that's why I have this nice sunflower. It's gorgeous. Here are all the zinnias. I haven't been harvesting the flowers to make arrangements lately. It's been about 2.5 weeks, so I'm gonna have to do it again. So these are cut and come again. So the more blossoms you cut, the more it'll make flowers. So I cut one there, as you can see, there, there. So I just have to cut these, and next year I vow to sow more different colored seeds for sure. So back to the peppers and other things. I've got bell pepper. I thought this plant was dying over the winter, so it's making lots of blooms now. It's a later fruiting plant. It produces fruit later than the other peppers, and currently it has seven peppers, bell peppers, and then it's producing new ones. And this is the snacking. I bought 2 orange snacking peppers, and lately it's the Harlequin bugs are getting on them and sucking the juices out of my other plants, which is quite annoying. I thought it was going to stick to the brassicas, and over here I just read that in this area where it stays hot longer, it can have 9 cycles of babies. So it can have adults to babies 9 times. Oh, here's one that's, oh yes, it's slightly green on the underside. So I just want it as big as possible before I harvest it. And then my eggplant has, and if you can see, it has numerous peppers. And the other one has numerous peppers as well. And so my eggplant had been attacked by those Harlequin bugs, and I was flicking them off as much as I could, and it's coming back. 1, a blossom here, some blossom forming. 2, more mature eggplant down there. I just harvested one right now. That makes 4, 5, 6. Here's a pretty big one. I'm gonna wait one more night for it. 7. Hopefully nothing gets to it. 8, 9. And this one, my husband calls it wonky. It's kind of wonky. 10. So one got eaten clear right off of the plant and went missing by some garden visitor. Here are my I'm not sure if you call them Anaheim chilies, and there's 2 in the back. And then my jalapeno or poblano pepper. I forgot because I lost the label, but this one's the tallest producing one. It may go this year. It doesn't. I don't know if the Harlequin bugs got to it, but earlier I had the spider mites that I kept this watered, and it was coming back and it looked nice and lush, and now it's starting to do the same. It could still be the spider mites. Back there I've got some tomatoes that I strung up, a couple of them. I gotta come back and string up the rest. And we just pulled some brassicas out of the dirt. And over here is Tomato Alley, and it's getting quite tall. And yesterday I gave it lots of water. And over here my Cuban oregano is taking over this whole planter bed. Over here I found out what I'm growing. So I'm growing a melon. So it's producing quite a few melons for me. There's 2 over there, and I found a 3rd one down here somewhere. I don't want to root around too much, and I don't want to knock the flowers off of the plant. And so the other plant that's growing next to it was the original seed I put in with these intricate leaves, and I couldn't figure out what it was, and then it was confirmed when I was watching something else that with all these intricate leaves, you would think that it's a watermelon, but it's more intricate than a watermelon leaf. So I found out it's a bittermelon gourd, which is exactly what I put the seeds in here for. I guess some of the seeds weren't mature enough, so they didn't make a plant. It wasn't fertile, but now it's making one. So I hope to get at least a few so that I can make my bittermelon soup with it. It's good for you. So more of those melons that I'm talking about. It was teeming with flowers. See, it's blooming quite a bit for that melon. So I'm hoping that it'll make a lot of fruit. But so far, I only see 1 bittermelon forming. And I hope to see more because I want to get at least 1 meal out of this plant. Here's another sunflower that's coming out. Here's my hammy melon that's pretty soon going to be ready to harvest. This was my first sunflower plant, and it was so tall, and I cut off the seed head because something was getting to it, and I fed it the seeds to the chicken, and it just keeps going and going. Even when I think it's done, it just keeps making new branches and making new flowers. So I just keep it here just because it's feeding the bees and other critters, and it's kind of holding up my tomato plant, which is rambling onto it, which is climbing onto it, which is fine. And here I have another pear or yellow pear tomato section alley. This basil I've harvested so much from it. Now it's coming back looking nice and green. It was getting a little bit yellow, but it just does well. Here's my watermelon plant. It was in a pot, and I know it doesn't do well in pots. I've tried to grow it in pots for years. You have to stick it in the ground, so I did, and I put some edamame shells underneath it to mulch it a little bit, And over here I've been cutting this canna, this towering canna, so that it will get some extra sunlight. And yeah, it's starting to finally start to grow upwards or elongate. Now here's my jewels of opar. So in the mornings I notice all the blossoms stay closed, and in the middle of the day they open up and they're the cutest little blossoms. These are also known as pink baby's breaths. My Japanese melons, I'm going to start harvesting them one by one and letting them sit on the counter for a few days before eating them so that the sugars can concentrate. So my dad was the one who told me that you don't just harvest it and eat it that same day. You have to harvest it and let it sit for a little bit, and then all the sugars will concentrate and it'll be nice and sweet. Because I had a watermelon a couple years ago that I harvested and I cut into it and I was like, it's really watery, and he told me that trick, so now I know. So over here I have a barrel there where I walk around and I pick up weeds, pull them out. I have this problem with this crabgrass. You have to get every bit of it. But the good thing about this mulch right now, it's dry and this stuff comes right out, like no fuss. So I stick it into this bin and I let it dry out. So underneath there are parts that are more dried out. If you leave it, the new stuff on the top, it will dry out better. And then I use that as the chicken bedding in the coop later on when it's fully dry. So the weeds will become the bedding for the chickens. So I'll have pulled out the weeds. Then they'll have a use, and I won't have to pay so much for bedding. And then also I can, and it'll be fully dead, and it'll be amended with the chicken manure. And then when it's time to clean the coop, I just toss this stuff in an area to let it decompose and compost down. And then after that, it becomes soil for me. And it's wonderful. Sometimes I chumple it to smaller pieces. But it's easy just to leave it as is too. And you want it dry because that means that every little node will not start to make a new plant and start to regrow the weeds. You want it fully dry and dead, so it can't do that and it'll just break down. Okay friends, so that's kind of the update. Sunflowers are resurrecting themselves in the garden all over the place, and the zinnias are blooming, and it's time to get harvesting, feeding the chickens, and watering the plants before it gets hot. That's all I can do. So I harvested one Japanese melon and one golden melon, and I don't know if this one's ready to be plucked, but it's been golden for quite a while and I don't want some critter to come along and eat it. It's been known to happen before. And I think the Japanese melon is ready to go because it has lightened, the skin has lightened, and it's about the size of a Japanese melon that I bought at the market. This could have been a little bit bigger and could have sat there a little longer, but being that the vine is creating new fruit, I figured maybe I'll give it a try now and I'll know whether or not it's a good time or not, and then it'll make the other fruits. It'll focus on making the other fruit.